You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today, just like any other time, we have another special guest today for this show this morning. We have our amazing guy, Bob Martin. He's going to teach us everything about what he has been able to do with his amazing career as a criminal trial lawyer. He also, in today's world, is doing meditation practices for his clients. He also is an author, has a lot of books that you need to check out, has an amazing website you can go to. It's a wiseandhappylife.com. Again, that's a wiseandhappylife.com. We're going to learn everything about what he's been able to do from the mob lawyer drug Miami days with the wild cocaine cowboys. We're going to learn everything about what he's been able to do and apply to his life. So first and foremost, Bob, thank you for waking up super early this morning. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great today. I hope you are. And thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
I appreciate you clearing your schedule to talk to us today. So kind of talk a little bit about, because what's really got me interested is from the mob lawyer days. So what was it like in Miami? How did you get that gig? And how was that experience for you?
So it was everything that you may have seen in the movie Scarface or in the TV show Miami Vice. All those stories, of course, were fiction, but the vibe that those shows displayed, that was the vibe of Miami during those days. It really was. Crocker and Tubbs, they kind of encapsulated it. So the way that I got the gig was that I was working as a district attorney. We call it state attorneys in Dade County under Janet Reno, who some of you might know from being the attorney general under the Clinton administration. Anyway, we were working there. I rose up and I was in the Economic Crimes and Consumer Frauds Division. And that's a division which we do criminal. We also do civil work. And one of those cases that we have is something called RICO, which is Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization. And we get to go after the money that a lot of the criminal organizations deal with, when they're laundering money. And anyway, we hit the mob. And in Miami, when we talk the mob, we're talking Italians, Colombians, Cubans, Haitians, all these people kind of come together based on, the different routes that they have for bringing the stuff in. And, but we hit the mob up for millions and $72 million. And that knocked them back a little bit. So when I left the DA's office shortly after that, and within a couple of weeks, I got a visit from a guy that I'm just going to call Johnny. And he just walked straight in my office, walked right by my secretary. He's placed himself in a chair across from me. And we just stood and looked at each other for a minute. And I knew who he was, because we prosecuted the case. I knew who he was. And all of a sudden, he opens his mouth and he goes, you hit us for a lot of money.
Right.
Turns out that he was pretty impressed with my legal work. And so they started sending me a bunch of clients. And so that's how I got that gig. Now, I got to explain, I wasn't consigliere. I wasn't like the inside advisor guy. But I was just a referral source. I would get all of these, the drug couriers and the mules and all of these folks that were picked up on federal and state charges. And they always came in, with a bunch of cash, always under the federal limit for reporting cash. So I did pretty well. Miami was very, very good to me.
Once again, you listen and watching this online. I'm Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Bob Martin. Once again, you can go to his website, wiseandhappylife.com. That's a very awesome story. When you decided that it was time for you to start writing, was that during your time being a criminal trial lawyer, or at what point did you decide, you know what, I want to start writing books and switch gears and teach people about meditation?
Yeah, so we all go through an evolution, I think, and in one way, my story is very, very common. We tend to make changes in our lives when, we're hitting bottom, when things are beginning to really fall apart, when we get a sense that we can't, everything is going out of control, spinning out of control. And so, sometimes those of us that are lucky enough to notice that that's happening, we seek out help. And I had sought out the help of a therapist. And then I found out through a very strange set of circumstances that my therapist was not only just a therapist, but he was also the disciple, and he was the English language editor for Master Watching Ni. Dig this, a 72nd generation master from the Shaolin Temple, a Taoist master from the Shaolin Temple. Dig that, 72 generations. I figured it out. It's about 1,400 years of passing wisdom down from father to son to father to son. And when I met this guy, it just blew me away. I'm sure that you have run into some people who, the moment you meet him, you just feel, I need to know what this guy knows. This guy's got it. He's got it. And he had it. And so I studied under Master Ni and George in a little Taoist group that we formed in Miami for many years, 8 years to be exact. And just about the time when everything that Master Ni was beginning to all come together within me, just about that same time, turns out that the previous arrangement that I had with Johnny, which was that I would do nothing illegal and nothing unethical, because it was in his best interest to have a lawyer that was trusted by the courts, of course. So it all worked out good. But then his son was arrested on a 15-year mandatory federal charge. And after that, there was no saying no to him. He wanted me to tell witnesses what to say and to create evidence, and I wasn't going to do it. So turned out that the best option was move away. And so I moved to North Carolina, and I got to tell you, it was funny because I moved from the chrome and glass discotheques of Miami to a small town in North Carolina where the first thing somebody said to me was, you need to get yourself a truck. So it was a bit of a culture shock. And I went from trying first-degree murder cases to trying people for killing antlerless deers.
It's a change.
It was a change. But it was great because I got to rewrite my life. It was a blank canvas, and I didn't have to bring my past with me, and I could create anything I wanted to. And so my work with Master Ni, I don't mean to sound woo-wee or la-la kumbaya, but sometimes when you do this work, you can actually feel your heart open. And I had this sensation, I had this physical sensation at one point of my heart opening up. And once that happens, all you really want to do is ease suffering in the world. And so I devoted myself, when I got to North Carolina, to doing public service and developing the skills that I would need to be able to share what I learned from Master Ni with others. And so I went through a very rigorous process of becoming certified as a meditation teacher, went back, got a master's in social work, and started working with my clients and teaching meditation. And that led me to who I am today.
I like what you said earlier about at some point, some are fortunate enough to realize that things are falling apart.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, because I think when an individual is at that crossroad, is another way of giving that person a check light engine. Like, hey, it hasn't hit that point yet, but eventually, if you don't make a decision, it can be worse than this warning light signal.
Oh, yes, sir.
I think that's a great illustration, because when you got back with your hands on the plow to go get certified, go back to school, it was part of that, like you said, the opening of the heart, because now you're in a position to not just grow yourself, but I'm sure there's some challenges along the way as you're growing yourself, because it's one thing to say yes to opportunity. It's another thing to keep saying yes when the store comes.
Yeah, that's true. It's true that, in the rooms, when I say the rooms, I mean the rooms of AA and NA and Alcoholics Anonymous, they have an expression, they call it white knuckle sober. And that's a person who has decided that they've got to clean up their act, but hasn't taken the step yet of reaching out for help. They're just white knuckling it, they're just gripping and holding on and holding on for dear life, that they can stay sober one more day. And the next step is understanding that, it takes a village. And, they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to create a recovery.
And touch on that for the audience, because with the people you get to work with through your meditation practice and being certified as a teacher, how has your experience with Miami and moving on from Miami, culture shock, if you will, being able to adapt to different types of needs from your clients, and how did those experiences position you to be able to create that value that was needed in that market?
Yeah, I think the answer is around the theme of judgment. Judgment, one of the things about meditation is one of the very, very first basic skills that we look to learn is that we are not our thoughts. We are the creator of our thoughts. Even we use in language, we say, I had a thought. Well, who is the I that had the thought? And so, we seek to separate ourselves into being the creator of our thoughts from our thoughts. But one of the very, very common kinds of thoughts that we have are judgmental thoughts. Good, I like, I don't like, this is good, this is bad, I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda, I'm not good enough, I don't think I can do that. I don't like the way that person looks. I don't like that person's color. I don't like that person's gender. We have all of these judgments that flow through our head. And the more judgmental we are, the more we feel judged. So being able to be with somebody that has, I'm not going to say conquered, but has at least quieted that voice of judgment. And let me say that meditation is not about quieting the mind. It's about learning to skillfully manage thoughts, because you can't make your thoughts go away. You can't create an empty mind, but you can skillfully manage your thinking. But you can, when you can manage your judgments, number one, you feel less judged by others, and that gives you a more happy and joyful life. But others can sense that you're not judging them. And being with mobsters and being with criminals and being with people that are suffering and being with people that feel that they don't deserve to be happy, or feeling with people that are depressed or have ADHD, and all of the many, many different people that I've been with, man, I'll tell you, I've seen it all. and there's nothing that you can tell me that's going to shock me. And for me to be able to be with somebody that's struggling with something internally, and for them to know that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, they can be an open book, and, you know, there's no judgment coming from here, makes me a safe place. A funny little story. Sometimes I do classes with kids coming out of the foster and juvenile justice systems. I do them pro bono, what we call, you do them, you know, just as a contribution. And one of the little kids, I think he was like 12 years old, and he was African American, and he had this African American name, and it was a bit hard to pronounce. So I called him by his name, and I said it wrong. And he looked up at me and he said, I'll never forget this. He said, Mr. Martin, I usually get really upset when people mispronounce my name. But I know that my name is safe in your mouth. I think about that today. You know, it makes my heart kind of like pump. But so that's the kind of that's what having all those experiences has brought me.
You also, once again, listen on Refocused Radio, watching us online. You also have classes that you do for health, fitness, weight loss. You've been able to use all these different experiences to tackle different pain points, and I think that's really great as a brand, as a person in a professional realm, because now you're not talking to fluff. You know, it's not like just let's go hug a tree. Nothing wrong with that. You want to do that? Do
yeah.
But you get to the point, and I think that's good because people have different pain points, and you're adding different solutions based on not just your own wisdom of your previous professional career, but also the knowledge you gain throughout life, because it's one thing to provide something just to provide it because, hey, here's my sticker, here's my badge. But it's another thing we actually try to study things that actually help people make progress.
True. There is, so I get to teach my, I was helpful in getting Elon University to agree to create a credited course in meditation that I now teach. So every semester I get 15 kids, and I can't do more than 15 at a time, because the way that I teach, every single day when they listen to a guided meditation, they log it, and I have a proprietary app. That log comes to my dashboard, and I read it. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I read the logs, and I respond to them, and it goes back to their app. So before they practice the next day, they get my feedback, right? Mm. So it's an incredibly efficient and effective way of teaching. Anyway, this one young lady took the class, and she wasn't engaging, because I could tell because I wasn't getting logs from her. And so I asked her to stay after class once, and she did. And I said, well, you know, this isn't a required course. It's elective. You chose to take it. So I know that you want to get the benefits, and I'm sure that you're smart enough to know, like, when you go to a gym, you can't just look at the machines. You know? Yeah.
I wish we could.
I wish we could, you know. My wife says when I buy fitness stuff that I think that is going to work by osmosis, just buying it is, but it doesn't. And so I said to her, you know, so what's up? Well, I mean, it's a much longer story, but eventually she started with, well, you know, it's funny. I always know what I need to do, but then I don't do it. But using meditation tools like, well, what is the exact language when you have your thoughts? What are the words? Don't tell me what they're like or describe them to me. Tell me what the words are that you're using, or where do you feel the upset in your body? Where in your body do you feel it? And after we used some of these tools of reconnecting with the body and reconnecting with the thoughts, she went through a couple of stages, but finally broke into tears and said, I just don't believe that I deserve to be happy. Wow. So now, I mean, I am a therapist, but I wasn't there as a therapist. I was there as a meditation teacher. So you're going to use the meditation tools. So again, we went back, where in your body, because she's now crying, so she's full of emotion. Where do you feel it? And she was eventually able to identify a spot that was like 3 inches below her collarbone on the left side. She said, it's not my heart, it's just this muscle right there. It feels like it's throbbing. I said, okay, well, a few more questions like that, and all of the tears dried up, and now she was in an academic conversation about what words she was using, what she was feeling, where the physical sensations were. And then we talked for a little while about how emotions are all they are is a particular thought combined with a particular body sensation. Like anger is, I don't like this guy, combined with a swelling or a burning of the cheeks or a swelling of the neck. Without either one, it's not an emotion. If I just say I don't like this guy and I don't have any physical sensations, it's not an emotion. And if you have the physical sensations without the thought, you might think it's indigestion. So, right? Yeah. So when you can deconstruct the emotions, then they become manageable and you can skillfully manage them. Within a couple of weeks, she was engaging every single day. And at the end of the course, when she gave me her reflection, she basically said to me that she was going to be able to carry that into the rest of her life. And what she said was, I can't believe I can't believe I have been controlled by this bullshit. Excuse my language. I can't believe that I have been controlled by this bullshit all my life, and I'm tired of it. And so, it goes across so many different areas and so many different things because, what are we talking about? We're talking about our thinking, and everything starts with our thinking.
Once again, listen, I'm Refocused Radio and talking to our guest today, Bob Martin. Watching us online, go to his website, awiseandhappylife.com. There's a few things I want to touch on before we wrap up, and that is engage, feedback, emotion. Because when you said that she got to that point, she said, I'm not going to allow this to basically be the BS that controls me forever, talking about emotion. Because when you said that, you showed her how to deconstruct it, break it down, find the root cause, what was the reasoning behind it. I think that's powerful because when we're able to look past our emotion, it's like, don't let emotions dominate. It's like, there's no excuse after that, because when you're in shallow water, right, you're just emotional and it's almost like you're just immature because you haven't grown up yet, so to speak. You just like, oh, woe is me, the victim mentality. Like, it's everybody's fault, but I won't look in the mirror. Just don't show me the mirror. I'm going to keep blaming everybody. But it's the moment when you address it. And I think that's key because from what she was as a person before your conversations, she wasn't addressing that emotion. She wasn't addressing the very thing that needed to be fixed. Like I said earlier in the show about the check light engine, when that warning sign comes up, it's only going to come up until you do something about it. And I love what you said about buying weights or just equipment for fitness, because I think that's very true. I think it's very true. We're still in the first month of the year, January. it's so true that we would go buy equipment, fitness equipment or weights or whatever, and we feel good for ourselves, right? It's shallow. We'll feel good for ourselves that, okay, we bought the equipment. But that equipment is going to be in that isolated corner, and it's going to collect dust until you use it.
That's right.
So when you talk about constructing our emotions and getting back into engagement so that we can get the feedback or be able to utilize the feedback, how often do we allow it to collect dust, though? Mm-hmm. Because it's time to move. I just wrote a blog the other day talking about, basically summarize, get to the point is we should allow ourselves to have these small wins. Like when we're exercising or just trying to have a healthy lifestyle, it's not about hitting the home run on the first swing. Mm-hmm. It's mostly just about showing up, because most average people will fail to show up, and then it's follow through. Do something that you do today that was better than yesterday. Too many times we look too far ahead, 10 years from now, 10 months from now, and it's like, wait, you're trying to crawl first before you start walking and before you start running. Touch on that before we sign off, because sometimes we are so busy trying to hit that home run, trying to get that slam dunk. It's like, no, just do 5 push-ups, just walk for 5 minutes. And do that.
I get it. 2 things I'll say. I go to the gym with a couple of guys every morning. I'm 75 years old. And I see the young 20-year-olds, they're pushing like all this iron, and I'm pushing the bar. And so I made myself a T-shirt, and it has a big circle on it, and there's a 75 in the middle, and it says 3/4 of a century. And I say, still showing up, deal with it.
That's good.
So 90% of it is just showing up. So, just show up. And that's that. The other thing is that when you talk about process, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. I call it unknown unknowns. Like this girl did not even know that she had the ability to control her emotions. So it was an unknown unknown. She didn't know it. So there was no conversation. There was nothing that she could approach. There was no access, because she didn't even know that it was a possibility that she could control her emotions. What I did for her, I didn't solve her problem, but I moved it from an unknown unknown to a known unknown. Now she knows that she has access. Now it's up for her to use that access to move it from a known unknown to a known known. Now she can develop the skill. But it is a process. And just because you learn something and you move it from an unknown unknown to a known unknown doesn't mean you can sit and rest on your laurels. Now it's your job. Wasn't your responsibility when you didn't know about it. Now that you know about it, it's your job to develop the skill.
It takes me back when you made a comment where she said she didn't feel like she deserved to be happy. And if we're all truthful, that is probably something that we all end up facing at some point in our life. We feel like we don't deserve to be here. Like sometimes the things that you pray for and you get, it's like, whoa, I didn't know it'd take all this work, or I didn't know all this was going to come with it. Like it's kind of like the analogy of the fitness equipment. We like how it looks. The guy or woman we saw in the commercial, they nice and toned, and we're the opposite. And we think once we get it, we just get that magic energy, and all of a sudden, poof, we become that nice toned person. But no, it is something that we work at every day. And like you said, the ball is in your court. Like no one is going to force you to live your life. You have to decide that I'm going to live my life. And that's the difference, like with this platform, talking to people like you and others. It's a common thread. Sometimes I have to pinch myself like, wow, I get to talk to so-and-so. But at the same time, they breathe the same air. They have 24 hours in a day, and they have choices. Mm-hmm. And it's like life is very complicated. I get that, but you can make it more simple when you just made that decision.
Right.
Once you cut the fluff, you say, okay, what do I have to actually do? What was the common denominator? What is it that I must do in order for me to at least better where I'm at? And when we decide to do that, boom, that's when I say opportunities start to flow. Just like when you had to make your decision from Miami to changing your scenery and taking your talent somewhere else. You didn't stop there. You could have said, you know what? I lived my life. Let's just be on the rocking chair and like not worry about life. But no, you kept going. You even went back to school. And our last thoughts, what would you say to that professional who feel like they might have just plateaued, but they just feel like, man, I know there's more, but what should I probably do to rediscover what my purpose is?
I will tell you what I learned from a very wise teacher once that was life-changing. Long story short, I went to listen to him, and he was talking about developing and cultivating loving kindness and generosity. I was feeling kind of cynical that day, and I raised up my hand. I said, hey, teacher, for 4,000 years, people have been teaching that stuff. And for 4,000 years, they've been followed by a small band of people while the rest of the world is running around with swords and torches. Why do I think it's going to be different now? And he looked at me and he caught my eyes and he looked right into my soul and he says, because tomorrow morning you're going to get up and you're going to do the same thing, because you never know when the tipping point comes. You never know when the tipping point comes. So when you're on that plateau, you get up the next morning and you keep going, because you don't know when the tipping point comes.
Man, all right. That's the masterclass. Everyone who likes poetry, snap your fingers. That was good. That was good, Bob. That was nice. That was a nice close on that. So first and foremost, you listen to our Refocused Radio, watching us online, and go to our guest website, awiseandhappylife.com. We've been talking to Bob Martin. I can believe time went by. I know it went overtime, but it was worth it. Want to invite you back on in the future if we can. And like always, thank you for your time.
I would love to come back on.